Jaya Vishnu Padma, Radhi Jaya, Saraswati Matra, Saraswati, Grace, C. Bhakti, Goswami, Maharashtra, Ki Jaya, Nanda Vaishnavi Ki Jaya, 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 Thakur Ki Jaya, Iskana Gurvinda Ki Jaya, Prem Se Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Bhavani Jan, Sri Radha, Sri Gaura Ki Jaya, Sri Radha, Krishna Govinda, Shakund Radha, Giri Govardhan Ki Jaya, Machuradam Ki Jaya, Navidam Ki Jaya, Janapurdam Ki Jaya, Nehar Swami Ki Jaya, Vrindam Ki Jaya, Bhakti Ki Jaya, Sundar Ki Jaya, Gaura Hare Gaura Swami Bhakti Ki Jaya, Glory to the Sim, Glory to the Sim, Glory to the Sim, Glory to the Sim, Gaura Shri Prabhupada, Namo Vishnu Ram Sita Jaya Swami Namni Nam Jaya Bhavani Jaya Gaura Jaya Dhamma Dana Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Snakker vi på dansk eller på engelsk?
English.
So today we will read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 2, which is called the Hiranyakashipu, King of the Demons, text number 39. Ya, Ichaya,
Ichaya.
Kan nogen lige på jer? Kan I ikke have det med? Isha,
Isha.
Srijati,
Srijati.
Idam,
Idam.
Avyaya,
Avyaya.
Ya, Eva, Rakshati, Evalumpati, Anihilatas, Anihilates.
What? This is not here.
Vi sætter switch, da vi flyttede bøger. Nummer 39.
Ja, er det ikke det, jeg læser?
Avalumpate cha ya står der.
Det starter med...
Nå ja, Avalumpati, ja. Cha. Sorry. Ja, Tasha,
Tasya.
Ahala, Kritanam,
Vidam.
Ahu,
Ahu.
Ishitu,
Ishitu.
Chara Acharam,
Taracharam.
Nigraha,
Nigraha.
Sangrahe,
Sangrahe.
Prabhu,
Prabhu.
Ya Ichayesha Sri Jatitamabhyayo, Ya Ichayesha Sri Jatitamabhyayo, Ya Eva Raksha Chavalumpate Yatya, Ya Eva Raksha Chavalumpate Chaya, Tasha Bala Kritanam Mahorishi Tush, Tasha Bala Kritanam Mahorishi Tush, Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu,
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu,
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Jaichayesha Srijitam Abhyayo,
Jaichayesha Srijatitam Abhyayo.
Ya Eva Raksha Chavalumpate Chaya,
Eva Rakshati Avalumpate Chaya.
Tasha Bala Kritanam Mahorishi Tush,
Tasya Bala Kritanam Mahorishi Tush.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Jeg vil spørge, om jeg har den der Shrija Tidam, Shrija, nummer 3. ord. Hvordan staver du til det?
Og S-R-J-A-T-I-D-A-M.
Okay, rigtigt nok. Ja, Ichaye Samnush, Shrija Tidam Avyayo.
Ja, Ichaye Shaya Tidam Avyayo.
Ja, Eva Rakshaya Valumpate Chaya.
Ya eva rakshya valumpate jaya. Tasya balakritanamahurishitus.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Ya ichaye shasrajatidam avyayo.
Ya ichaye shasrajatidam avyayo.
Ya eva rakshati avalumpate chayaha.
Ya eva rakshati avalumpate chaya.
Tasya balakritanam ahurishitus.
Tasya balakritanam ahurishitus.
Characharam nigraha sangrahe Prabhu.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Ichaye shasrajati damavyayo.
Ya ichaye shasrajatidam avyayo.
Ya eva rakshati avalumpate chaya.
Ya eva rakshati avalumpate chaya.
Tasya balakritanam ahurishitus.
Tasya balakritanam ahurishitus.
Characharam nigraha sangrahe Prabhu.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Ya Ichaye Shashrikati Tamavyayo.
Ya ichaye shasrajatidam avyayo.
Ya Eva Raksatya Valumpate Chaya.
Ya eva rakshati avalumpate chaya.
Tasya Balakritanam Ahurishitus.
Tasya balakritanam ahurishitus.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Ichaye Shasrajati Damavyayo.
Ya ichaye shasrajatidam avyayo.
Ya Eva Rakshatya Valumpate Chaya.
Ya eva rakshati avalumpate chaya.
Tasya Balakritanam Ahurishitus.
Tasya balakritanam ahurishitus.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu.
Characharam Nigraha Sangrahe Prabhu. Ya who Ichaya by his will, without being forced by anyone. Isha, the Supreme Controller. Srijati, creates. Idam, this material world. Avyaya, remaining as he is, not having lost his own existence, because of having created so many material manifestations. Ya, who, Eva, indeed, Rakshati, maintains, Avalumpate, annihilates, Cha, also, Ya, who, Tasha, of him, Abala, O poor women, Kritanam, the plain, Ahu, they say, Ishitu, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chara Acharam, moving and non-moving, Nigraha, indestruction, Sangrahe, or in protection, Prabhu, fully able. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. The boy addressed the women, "O weak women, only by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never diminished, is the entire world created, maintained, and again annihilated. This is the verdict of the Vedic knowledge. This material creation, consisting of the moving and the non-moving, is exactly like His plaything. Being the Supreme Lord, He is completely competent to destroy and protect." Purport. In this regard, the queens might argue, if our husband was protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead when in the womb, why has he not been given protection now? To this question, the answer is, Ya ichayesha sri titham avyayuya eva rakshacha valampate chaya. One cannot argue with the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord is always free, and therefore He can protect and He can also annihilate. He's not our order carrier. Whatever He likes, He will do. Therefore, He is the Supreme Lord. The Lord does not create this material world or at anyone's request, and therefore He can annihilate everything merely by His will. This is His supremacy. If one argues, why does He act in this way? The answer is that He can do so because He is supreme. No one can question His activities. If one argues, what is the purpose of this sinful creation and annihilation? The answer is that to prove His omnipotence, He can do anything and no one can question Him. If He were answerable to us concerning why He does something and why He does not, His supremacy would be curtailed. Krishna. So the verse again, Ya ichayesha sritidam abhyayo ya eva rakshacha valampate chaya chasha pala kridanam avodishitus chara charam nikra sangrahe prabhu. The boy addressed the women, "O weak women, only by the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never diminished, is the entire world created, maintained, and again annihilated. This is the verdict of the Vedic knowledge. This material creation, consisting of the moving and non-moving, is exactly like His plaything. Being the Supreme Lord, He is completely competent to destroy and protect." Om Gyanatimirandasya Gyanantinasaraya Chaksurunyatamina Tasmai Sri Pravinama Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Vijayavaidagadara Sri Vasari Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. So there's a statement in the Vedas, Achincha Kalu Yabhava Na Tangstar Kina Yoje, which means that which is achincha, inconceivable, can never be subject to logic and argument. It's just like, it's logic that there is a God, that anyone with a brain can understand that there is a God, because it is simply seeing all the manifestation of nature, seeing how it bears all the signs of design. It's just logic. Anyone can understand that. It is completely logical, like the modern materialists say that everything just came out of chemicals, and then the chemicals became a little amoeba, and then the amoeba grew legs and learned to talk, and here we are. That's just idiotic. But that is the prevalent worldview nowadays. So it says that, of course, it's Kali Yuga, so that's, if we ask, how is people being so, how can the majority of people in the world be stupid? And the answer is Kali Yuga. So that is logical that there is a God. Anyone can understand that. But who God is, what He does, where He is, that's not logical. It is logical that there is a designer, but that Mahavishnu lies down in the causal ocean and breathes out all the universes. That's not logic. That is just something we have to accept. And that's something that we have to learn from those who know. That's why it is said in the Bhagavad Gita, Tad Vidi Pranipatina Pariprashina Sevaya Upadekshanti Te Jnanam Jnaninas Tattva Darshina. That you have to learn from those who know. You have to learn the truth. Jnaninas Tattva Darshina. From those who know it already. You cannot speculate, or maybe it's like this, maybe it's like... Maybe God creates by, spitting out universes from His mouth. You cannot speculate that. You have to learn. And the funny thing is, even on the material platform, that is the case. Like when we go to school, we learn from an authority. Like our Vaishnava process, Jiva Goswami describes that we have 3 ways, we accept 3 ways of learning. Shabda, he says that's the most important, that's learning from authority by sound, by listening. And Anuman, by logic and reason. And Pratyaksha, by direct sense perception. But direct sense perception, we know that cannot give access to the absolute truth. Nor can logic and reason. So we have to hear. And that is true even on the material platform. It's the most important way that we learn. Like if we want to learn how to play the guitar. Of course we can sit and try ourselves, but an intelligent person, he goes to somebody who can play and learns from him. Or if we want to be a mathematician, then we go to the university and learn from a professor in mathematics. Nobody can become an authority in mathematics without having learned from an authority in mathematics. So if you are a professor in mathematics in the university, you know that you are certified, and you have become certified by learning from another professor. It's like a disciplic succession in mathematics. So it makes sense that this is also the case in the spiritual science. Now, nowadays people, they just call it faith, and they call religion faith. But Prabhupada didn't call our religion a faith, he called it a science. So it is something that we can know about. So the way we learn about it and can know about it is by listening to the authorities. Now here in this case, the question is being raised by these women. They ask why has God not given protection to their husband? And Prabhupada says, well, you can ask this question, but God is not obliged to answer us because He's the Supreme. And Prabhupada answered people by saying that if He was obliged, if we say, God, you have to do this, and He has to oblige, then that means He's not Supreme. Being the Supreme means that He is completely Swarat, independent. That is also made, that's in the very first verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is stated by Shukadeva Goswami, that Krishna is completely Swarat. That's one of his egenskaber, properties, one of his qualities, that Krishna is completely swarat, completely independent. That means that we cannot, we can of course ask why this and why that, but he may not want to oblige us with an answer. Like sometimes people, if they have some suffering and they say, oh why God, why did you do this? But the fact is that God doesn't do anything. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he's the non-doer, he doesn't do anything. Everything is carried out by nature. So on the normal material platform, we can never say, why God did you do this? Because we did it. We may not remember in past life we did something which will generate or create this reaction, this karmic reaction. But we are actually the creators of our own destiny. This is what is so wonderful about the law of karma and the reincarnation, that we ourselves is the creator of our own destiny. Sometimes people say, and it's a fact, we cannot know what our destiny is. Sometimes people, they say, well, if you believe in karma, you just become apathetic and just sit down and do nothing, because everything is anyway predestined. And it is true. It is described, Narada Muni is described somewhere in the Bhagavatam that from the very birth, our suffering and enjoyment in this life is already predestined. All the suffering, all the enjoyment that we will go through is already, our destiny is already determined. So then we might say, yeah, but if it's already determined, then I don't do anything, I just sit here and wait. But the thing is, we don't know our destiny, we don't know what our karma is, so that means we still have to act, we still have to try. And then if we try, like if I want to be a rich man and I try and try, and after 20 years I'm still not a rich man, then maybe I can say, oh well, it's not my karma to become rich. But we have to try. And just because we believe in karma doesn't mean that we won't try. We'll still, or if we see some old man falling over in the street, we'll go and help him. We won't just say, that's his karma, he's destined to suffer. So let me help him by hitting him on the head and make him suffer even more. That's not actually the logical thing. It's a normal thing in the heart that we have empathy with other living entities. And even though we know it's their karma that they are suffering, it's their own fault. It's something they did either in this life or in a previous life, we will still feel sorry for them and try to help them. Also because karmically, if we don't try to help people who are suffering, then that is our bad karma. Then we will, because karma means whatever you put out, you will get back. So if you put out this, you don't care about other living entities, that means you will be in the same situation. That nobody will care about you when it really counts, and you can't get any help when you need it. So the karma means that we have to act. Karma means action and reaction, and the reaction to the action. So we have to act, and but materialistic speaking, or in material activities, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, you know this rule, smarta vyasa tam vishnu vismarta vyona dhyatu chit eta yoriva kinkara. That the most important rule in devotional life is to always remember Krishna and to never forget him. That Prabhupada says is the most important thing. To always remember Krishna and never forget him. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that there's also something which is equally as important to always remember and never forget. And that is the fact that material activity always ends in suffering. He says that you have to always remember and never forget. Because it is and he also says that before we have realized the hopelessness of this material existence, then we cannot really surrender to Krishna. So that's why Prabhupada spent so much time when he came to the West pointing out the fallacies and the idiocy of the material world and the material welfare workers and the politicians and the whole system. They're trying to create material solutions to material problems. But like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, there are no material solutions to material problems. There's only a spiritual solution, and that's Krishna consciousness. So that's why we go out and preach. Because we actually feel sorry for people. And even the successful ones and the beautiful ones and the ones who have good karma and get everything they want, we know, they may not know, but we know that they will also suffer in the end. Because the body is just breaking apart, growing old, is sick, and it's going to die. And that's why everything ultimately always ends in suffering. So they speak so much about love and friendship and all these things, and they try to enjoy all these things. But they always end in suffering. Say you have found a girl that you really love and you're so happy, but that same happiness is going to turn into misery. Either when she leaves you, or she dies, or you stop loving her and you have to leave. It always ends in misery. So sometimes people say, you devotees are so negative, you're always speaking about the bad things. Why can't you speak about the good things in life? But there aren't any good things. That's a fact. There aren't any good things. And this we have to realize as devotees. This is the first thing we have to realize before we can actually surrender fully to Krishna. Prabhupada says in one purport, anyone who is optimistic about material life, he's an animal. Then some people go, yeah, but I want to be an animal, like atheists. They always say that humans is just another animal. But then when you call them, you're just an animal, then they become very offended. Because the fact is nobody wants to be an animal. We want to be human beings. And we know that human beings are higher than animals because we have higher thinking capacity, higher intelligence, and all these things. So, but if we just use it for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, then we're no better than animals. And that's why when we come to the devotional process, that this is the first step to become actually real human beings, because that is the only purpose of the human form of life. And that's why we got this human form of life. It's a chance for us to realize the absolute truth. And what is the absolute truth? It is that we don't belong in this world. We want to get out of this world. Of course, when we become accomplished devotees, when we become purified and become pure devotees, then it doesn't matter where we are, in the material world or in the spiritual world or in heaven or hell, because for a devotee it's just Krishna. And that is the wonderful, amazing thing about Krishna, that even when we suffer, the body may suffer, and but we can still be happy in Krishna consciousness. That's a fact.